You cannot tell me that people love this stuff. It was giving waste at the side of the road, dirty looking soil, construction vibe, looking dirty and nasty. It's a no for me. Does not look cute. Their prime time has passed. For the Instagram girlies taking selfies, there was no attention to detail. Barren land city, after it has been hit by a meteorite, there was nothing growing on it except weeds. It's just looking sad. Nothing too exciting, nothing too inventive, nothing too grand. Basic ass plants, but they did not. They decided for dirt. I don't know what I'm supposed to enjoy, but I'm not enjoying this. Hello everybody and welcome back to Plantivalo and to part 2 where I rant about the Landesgartenschau in Bad Nendorf or the State Garden Show. If you watched part 1, you already know that we are off to a rough start with the State Garden Show. If you did not watch part 1, I would advise you to watch it after this video. They don't need to be in any particular order. Outside of the flower hall there was some kind of outdoor furniture on very dirty soil. The sofas were completely dirty, the arrangement was giving waste at the side of the road and it was not cute, it was not inviting, nobody wanted to sit there. There was a barrel, a fire and the barrel was missing and the whole hobo vibe would have been complete. I did not understand this whole dirt thing. They could have put some gravel on there so that the dirt wouldn't spray on the furniture, but let's move on. Then there was a very beautiful meandering cobblestone pathway to the top of a hill, and you could see that there was some kind of planting effort at like 5% of this cobblestone pathway, and the other 95% were just completely empty, and you could really tell that this pathway was just built a few months ago, and on the side of this pathway there was just growing nothing. And they could have just sown something, doesn't matter what, but it was just dirty looking soil and that's it. Yeah, they cleared off everything on the side of this cobblestone pathway. I don't know if they are going to plant something there or if they will just leave it empty like it is. I don't know. Right now it's just naked soil giving off construction vibes, but maybe that's the vibe they are going for. On the side of this cobblestone pathway there was this kaleidoscope thing, which honestly was the best part until this point. Was cute. And then there were these plastic steles. They were really beautiful. They threw very colorful light onto the pathway and it was really interesting to look through them into the forest. When you were passing by these steles you could see the different colors mixing and it was really beautiful. But then again, attention to detail was not there because they were surrounded by this empty soil, and when it rains it splatters this dirty soil all over these steles and it just takes you out of the whole experience. They are just looking dirty and nasty. You could have just put some gravel in there if you wanted to make it extra cute and nice. You could have lined these steles with some moss, dead or alive, doesn't matter, but that way you would have prevented the steles getting sprayed with dirt. Moving on. Then there was this place. I mean, I love a disco ball, don't get me wrong, but to have a dance floor on the side of the pathway feels like an afterthought to me, to be quite honest. It felt like, oh, we have this clearing, we can do that disco platform thing you wanted to do. I mean, imagine for a moment a clearing dedicated to this dance floor. A little bit on the side of the pathway with a little extra road leading to this dance floor, secluded by some trees and some shrubs. Because of this seclusion, you could really dance like no one's watching. How nice would this be? Here it's on the side of the road. It's like, okay, just for extroverts. If you would like to dance, you will be watched, and in Germany you will be judged, because people that are going on this pathway will be looking at you and they will judge you. Yeah, so it's a no for me. Moving on. Then there was this huge clearing with some flower beds. Their prime time has passed a long time ago. At some point they were probably cute, I guess. These flower beds were separated by a dry-ass meadow where a lot of passing by has occurred, I think. I don't know how this happens. It does not look cute. You could have just sown some grass. Grass seeds are not that expensive, so people can go there and it doesn't look as messy as it does now. I was not impressed. Details, y'all, details. Then there was this building. The building was cute, very out of context. It is not tied to its surroundings, but you can sit in it. I mean, imagine for a moment, what about putting some beautiful stone troughs in front and on the side, some trailing plant on one side of this building, some taller grasses in the back, so that the forest gets tied in with this whole structure. The stone plants are low maintenance, looking cute, some pops of color, some yellow, some green, some red. How nice is that? You don't have this empty space, you just have an inviting space where you want to sit, where you want to look outside. Then immediately it looks like it has been there for some time, not just since yesterday. Then there was some kind of exploration forest, I think that's what they called it. They were mirrors in a forest, and the trunks of the trees have been painted in various shades of greens and blues and turquoise. And I was like, okay. I mean, imagine for a second they were like funhouse mirrors. It would have been a little bit more interesting, because then you get those distorted pictures in the mirrors and you would have probably seen the forest from a different perspective, because the picture would have been warped, you know what I mean? I feel like it was for the Instagram girlies taking selfies in this forest and tagging the State Garden Show so it gets more clout. Once again, there was no attention to detail. There was again dirt everywhere, no moss, no gravel, no nothing. So the mirrors were sprayed with dirt once again at the bottom. Again, takes you out of the fantasy. Moving on. Next stop was Barren Land City. The vibe it was giving was colonizing Mars or replanting Earth after it has been hit by a meteorite, and humanity is struggling to find plants to replant Earth. It was just sad. Very, 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 very sad. And there was a very funny sign, at least I think it's very, very funny, because it says, "I'm a meadow and I'm still growing." There was nothing growing on it except weeds. I don't know if they have sown some seeds, some wildflowers or something like that, but it was completely dry. So even if they have sown something, they won't germinate in this dry ass desert. Have you seen meadows in May? I mean, they look completely different. If they have created this meadow in fall last year, this meadow would have looked completely different. So I'm assuming there were some difficulties with timing. They probably have woken up one day before and said, oh, we have to put a sign on there because it looks horrible. And it does, so that people maybe won't complain too much, but here I am complaining a lot because I paid 25 euros for this Mars colony. On this barren land were some kind of containers for the restrooms. They didn't even bother to put a dedicated building on there. I mean, it doesn't have to be something permanent, but containers with plastic fabric wrapped around it, it is really giving, this is temporary, enjoy it while it lasts. I don't know what I'm supposed to enjoy, but I'm not enjoying this. They could have concealed it with kind of green fabric or like some kind of forest print on these things. They are not large enough to cover the whole containers. They are too small. You can see the containers. The structure is much bigger. This fabric was supposed to be much larger than it is. It's just looking sad. Why? Why? On this barren land there were secluded areas that were partitioned off by this plastic mesh fabric, which was completely unnecessary. It was very vibrant, very neon for some reason. And these secluded areas were planted really nice, and they had some cute ideas, but the thing is, they were just advertisements. Every secluded area belonged to a different company showing you things they can do in your garden, and yeah, basically displaying ideas for you to take in, so you hired them to rearrange your garden. So basically the organizers of the State Garden Show in Bad Nendorf had nothing to do with this. The planting was completely done by these companies, and these were basically one of the few parts that were planted in a nice way and displayed some kind of creativity. So for example, there was some cute stone troughs which they used as water feature, which was really nice. It was really quiet and the water sounds were just at the right volume. It was amazing. Honestly, the best part about this area was the look outside of the State Garden Show to the neighboring hills and meadows. It looked really lovely, but the State Garden Show not so much. You can really see where the State Garden Show ends because it's just barren land, and behind it are these beautiful meadows and forests which look amazing. Then there was a stone staircase which I really liked. They put some little stone plants in the nooks and crannies of this staircase. But why did they choose this color of gravel which does not match the stairs? I mean, it doesn't have to be matchy-matchy, but at least put it in the same color category. Why use warm-toned stairs and cool-toned gravel? It's just clashing. It doesn't look good, but the idea was at least interesting to me. Then there was this black-inspired garden. There was some black mulch made out of charcoal, which I found was really interesting. Killed two stones with one bird. You kill two birds with one stone. You put a ton of carbon into your soil by just mulching with charcoal, and it looks cute. It makes the colors really pop, especially the green and the nice colored tulips looks really nice, and the birch with the white bark fits perfectly into this black themed garden. And then you have this nice separation from flower bed to the pathway, which has a lighter colored gravel. Really nicely done, really interesting. The planting could have been a little bit more interesting, but at that point I'm not complaining anymore. The fabric was a choice. Should have been black. Would have looked much nicer, but some displays were questionable. One cubicle had this horrendous plastic greenhouse, which was way too small to put anything significant in there. It was so cheaply made. It was flopping in the wind. Maybe it's supposed to be realistic. I don't know. What are people putting into those? Maybe some herbs. You don't need a greenhouse for herbs. It was sad. Then there was this bed. I don't know why they put sand on it. There was no border to this plant bed. They didn't do any weeding beforehand, which you can see on the back side. They just put sand on it and planted plants in there. The weeds will grow back through the sand. This is not a mulch that prevents weeds from coming back. And then there's this awkward gap between the flower bed and the pathway. I did not understand it. And it wasn't even a Mediterranean flower bed, not an alpine flower bed, where sand would have made some sense. But no, this is just a basic plain ass flower bed with sand on it. Why? Tell me why. Then there were some flower beds which were quite nice, but it was at the main entrance, so it makes sense that they put all of their effort in the main entrance. There was this green background, so they didn't remove the meadow. They just used it as a backdrop, which was really smart. They should have done it at the other places. Color scheme was okay, nothing too exciting, nothing too inventive, nothing too grand. Then there was this commercial area where you could buy lots and lots of different things, like 90% rusty stuff, like this biblically accurate garden angel or something. Then you could also buy some plants which were 50 to 80% more expensive compared to garden centers, and they were nothing special. They were the same varieties you could get anywhere else, just more expensive. The quality was questionable most of the time. It's really interesting to me that you have to pay an entrance fee of 25 euros and then pay extra for basic ass plants with lower quality compared to a garden center. The math is not mathing for me. Please someone explain this equation to me, because for me it's a mystery. For an example, this clover, which was one of the few things I found interesting there, cost 8 euros for a plant which is easy to propagate, doesn't require any heating, doesn't require any special soil or any special fertilizer or anything like that. 8 euros. Insane. Production of this thing is maybe like 50 cents. Then there was an area that was closed off for some reason. 25 euros for a fence, I guess. Then there was this really beautiful alley with these trees, but the alley was there before, so doesn't have to do anything with the State Garden Show. Coming to my probably my favorite part of this State Garden Show, finally a good part, was this urban forest display, and they used trees which are fit, or at least are supposed to be fit for climate change, and you could really tell that this was planted a long time ago, probably somewhere around fall last year, because everything was growing into each other nicely. There were these plants underneath the canopy which were growing there for a long time. They grew into each other just how they would do in a natural forest, and it just looked really nice and lovely and organic, and it was inspiring, I have to say. There were some interesting plants. They used simple plants just like wild strawberries, which was really nice. Some trailing plants, some vining plants. It was probably the first time I felt inspired at this State Garden Show. I think the only complaint I had with this area was that it was just too small. You could go through and around it in maybe like a minute, and I wish that it was a little bit bigger, more grand, so you can spend some time there, maybe with some even bigger trees, so you can do some more exploration underneath the canopy, look at the plants for a longer time, because it was really small. The idea was really great and the execution was amazing, but it was just too small. We take what we can get, I guess. Adjacent to this urban forest was a really nice meadow. I give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they planted or sown the meadow themselves and it was not there beforehand. Let's just assume that. And they did that probably fall last year because it looks really nice. It's already blooming. My only question is then, why didn't they do it at the other places where there was this sign, this meadow is still growing? Why didn't they just sow it everywhere? It would have looked so nice, so cute, so organic, so well put together, but they did not. They decided for dirt. Why? Why did you do it? On this beautiful meadow were 3 beehives just standing there, very wonkily, looking weird, leaning to one side. It was just, there are 3 beehives. Enjoy. If they fall, it's not our problem. Wind, we don't know her. Oh yeah, then there was this pyramid flower thing, which looked really nice and cute from afar. They made sure that it was not too mixed together. They had some areas with euphorbias, some areas with tulips, so you get those really nice pops of colors. But the closer you got, the more empty spots you could see. And in those empty spots is where you could tell how the structure was built and made up. And you could see these plastic mesh things that were holding up the whole structure and the soil, so it doesn't just wash all off. It just took you out of this whole fantasy that this was an organic hill, because it was not, but you could have just concealed it by sowing some clover, some Oxalis vulcanicola, for example, which doesn't get too tall, so it stays on top of the soil, covers the whole structure and looks red. You can also get it in green and in yellow to get some color variations. Would have looked cute, or you wouldn't have been able to tell how the structure is made. It doesn't help that you can go around this whole thing on some kind of skywalk, which was not tall enough to be a skywalk. I think it's just so we can take a look at this pyramid from all angles. I don't know if that was a smart decision, because then you can also see the empty spots from above. I don't know if people do not notice such details. I don't think people are that blind. Yes, I have an eye for details, but you cannot tell me that people love this stuff. Anyways, moving on. One of my favorite parts was this meandering pathway, again made out of cobblestone, through this forest. The forest was there before, they just built this pathway. The canopy had just the right density, the light was trickling through this canopy, and it was just so beautiful, so peaceful. You could immediately tell that this pathway was built for the State Garden Show, because there was no planting on the side of this pathway. They could have sown at least some grass, some wildflowers, some natives that occur in forests. This cobblestone pathway led you to some interactive things, like, for example, these metal tubes, which you could use to create some sounds. I did my best to create a tune. It was very fun. I liked it, I have to say. And then you had also these mushrooms, which you could also use to make some music. I just wished that there were more of these interactive installations. I really liked them. They forced you to take your time to stop and to interact with this State Garden Show, and to stay there for a longer time. But unfortunately there were not many of those interactive things. Then there was some art, some cut blocks of soil which were placed there to decompose, which was quite interesting, I have to say. And some dyed fabrics. I think they dyed it also with dirt. And this was really interesting. What took me out of it again was this plastic fabric which they used to seclude this area, which didn't make any sense to me, because they could have just used this dyed fabric they hang in the middle of this exhibition also for the outside, which would have made much more sense, and it would have been a cohesive exhibition. I am really pondering, because there were some beautiful parts, like this meadow, and let's just say they have taken the time last year and sown the seeds to make it this dense and this floriferous. So I see that there was some effort put in there. These secluded areas where the company showed off their skills had nothing to do with the State Garden Show. They just provided the space, so I'm not including that. So all in all, I would give the State Garden Show in Bad-Nendorf 1 out of 5 stars, because it was not inspiring. They didn't display any new flowers, they didn't display any new plant combinations, flower combinations, texture combinations, no new bedding forms, no new bedding linings, no new pathways, nothing that has never seen before, nothing new, nothing creative, nothing inventive. To sell a ticket for 25 euros where most of it is barren, where most of the exhibitions stand on dirty soil and get sprayed with this dirt once it rains, is just mind-blowing to me, and brave to say the least. They could have mitigated this problem by selling pre-season tickets, which were, for example, half the price, or take off 1/3 of the price. It's okay to run into time and budget problems, yes, but then you have to deal with the problem. They just sell these 25 euro tickets year round, expecting that people will just accept it. And for me, this is not acceptable. After we went there, I read some comments and I was relieved to see that basically the majority of people agreed with what I was thinking. Sometimes I'm thinking maybe I'm too harsh, maybe I'm criticizing a little bit too much, but you really have to put into perspective what you are paying and what you get out of this experience, and this is just not worth 25 euros. Take the 25 euros, buy some plants for it, or go 5 times to the Berggarten. You can use every single month of the summer, go once per month to the Berggarten, and you get much more out of it. I would like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please, if you visited the State Garden Show in Bad Nendorf, please tell me what you thought. Do you agree? Did you not? Please tell me, because I'm really interested. So that was it for this video. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing to this channel, and I hope I will see you in the next one. Bye!